Hello everybody. The COVID season is teaching a lot of new things, and the new thing that you have to learn about is the pulse oximetry. What we advise you to put in your fingers at your home through a small handheld device and check your oxygen levels. It's time you learn a little bit about what significance does that number have. If we look at our blood flowing, there are two phases. One is the liquid phase and the other is the cell phase, of which there are white blood cells, platelets, and here our concern is the red blood cells. They are red blood cells because they carry the oxygen. The oxygen, when we check it in your blood by a blood test, is known as the PaO2, which is normally around 80 to 100, but which contributes only to the 1% of the total oxygen carried by the blood. The rest 99% of oxygen is carried by the red blood cells as a complex to the hemoglobin. And this is expressed as SpO2. And this is what you check with the finger pulse oximeter. The number shown is the saturation of oxygen, and that is generally 100%. Most pulse oximeters have double digit display, so there it will show you as 99%. Why are we talking about the PaO2 levels at all when they are not significant, just carrying 1% of the oxygen? Well, just like in life, this 1% decides the fate of the 99%. And here I will just like to show you how the relationship between the two works. When our PaO2 is around 100, the saturation is also around 100. That level is normal. But as the PaO2 level starts falling, the fall in the saturation is very little. So the PaO2 has to fall from somewhere close to 100 to 60 to produce a drop in saturation from 100% to 90%. But after this, you see the precipitous drop. You are almost sitting like a cliff here if you reach 90% saturation, because a little drop in oxygen from here would produce a significant drop in the saturation levels. And saturations above 90% are desired. But we give you a safety figure of 93 to 94 so that you sit probably a little bit above this. You don't drop down the cliff precipitously. So when you are reaching your saturation to 93, 94%, there is already around 30 to 40% drop in the oxygen content of your blood. That is the PaO2 levels. PaO2 coming down from 100 to 60, the saturation comes down from 100 to 90. You got to be reporting before that. The other issue is that in elderly people, the PaO2 levels is, as I said, on the lower side, 80, which would mean that their normal saturations might be around 93, 94, 95%. That is very common in those who have lung disease and those who are elderly, maybe 70 to 80 years of age. How to track them? Well, in them, the other thing you should look at is the drop. If there is a 3 to 4% change, so your normal oxygen levels remain somewhere around 95, 96, you have been checking that and now it drops to 91, 92. Oh, that would be considered a significant drop. So you should also know what is your baseline oxygen saturation levels. At least for the elderly, that is very important to know, because then it's not just the absolute figure of 93 to 94%, but a percentage drop also which will matter. When you put the finger pulse in oximeter in your finger, just let it be there for 10 seconds or so. Just there be a good graph display. Let the pulse rate and the oxygen saturation settle down, and then you take the value. Presence of pigments may interfere with the readings because they are actually based on the different colors which the blood has, and there are two wavelengths which are there in the pulse oximeter which are used to check the percentage of the oxygenated blood. So nail colors or maybe some kind of dyes or maybe sometimes jaundice can interfere with the readings. It is best to have clean nails to take your saturation levels. These devices are fairly reliable. We have been using it for almost 10 years now, at least personally me. And probably these are the best ways to check your oxygen levels on a continuous basis. That is what we also do when we admit you in the intensive care and put you on a monitor. What we see continuously is your oxygen saturation levels. So get yourself a pulse oximeter, check your baseline saturation levels. You know that by the time you are reaching 93-94%, there is a significant drop in the oxygen content of the blood which has already occurred. It is at that point of time you should take medical advice. And for elderly people, please know your baseline saturation levels so you can register this 3 to 4% drop and raise an alert. Now I will show you the real-time checking of the pulse ox. There is a button here which you can see, which I am pressing, which puts on the display, and I put a finger on here, and you can see there are two values, SpO2 and PR, which is BPM, beats per minute. PR is for pulse rate. And you can see you have to wait for a little time for it to be recorded nicely, and you can see the waveforms coming very nicely. There is a flicker because of the LED display, and you can see my heart is beating at 128 beats per minute. Probably I'm very excited telling you all this, but it is right. I've checked my pulse, it is running at around 130, and you can check my saturation level is fine, 99%. You got to be holding it at that period of time at least to know that a stable value is being reflected both in the pulse rate and the SpO2. And as you take your finger out, they automatically go off. So it tells you the finger is out, it can detect that and it will go off. And if you can see what happens when you put the finger on, there is actually a light which is there flickering inside. Maybe you can appreciate it here, you can see. And that is actually the wavelengths which is sent in a pulsatile manner, which detects the level of the oxygenated blood as a color code and displays that as a digital number.